Hi there, I'm Christine, the Gemini Stitcher, and welcome to my sewing shack. I'm quite proud of it at the moment. Be amazed at my fabric stash, all organised in my Kallax units, and the ones underneath the desk have all been rolled and organised as well. Super proud of myself. There's a reason why I've got so much tidying done. And disaster struck on Monday. My sewing machine decided to die on me. I know. I've missed it all week. I feel like my right arm's been chopped off. But it's in the best place. I took it to bits, couldn't get it to move, and doing this, and it would only do that. If you understand what I mean, it wouldn't do that. It was just doing that and jamming. So it's in the sewing machine hospital, being made better. I've got an overlocker, so I thought, oh yeah, I'll be okay. But no, there's certain elements when you're overlocking that you need your sewing machine for, so I've given up. Anyway, we're not on here today to discuss my dilemmas and problems. I'm joining on the bandwagon of the sewing edition of the This or That set of questions, because I thought it was quite fun. I watched Sew Carol do hers, and she opened it up to anybody who's not done it already. So that was like, poof, right, I'm doing that. So, and I quite like the questions, they make you think. It was set up by the Curated Curvy. I'll pop the link to their channel in the description below. So thank you for setting this fun challenge up. So shall we start with the questions and see what my undecisive Gemini brain thinks of them? I've got them written down, so if you keep doing that, sorry, I'm going to try not to, and hold them at an angle and look at you and read at the same time without looking away. Pretty impossible, but I'm going to try. So the first section of questions, see, I'm doing it already. Let's just pretend the pad's not here, otherwise I'm going to be looking down. So the first set of questions is all about sewing prep. And question number 1 is shopping for new versus stash busting. Now, this is a really interesting question. I absolutely love fabric shopping. I'm addicted to it. And if there was a rehab for it, I sure as heck need to go. However, I do consciously try to make with fabrics, and as you can see, it's quite extensive, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's just the ones I want to work with. I do try and work through my stash, and I do quite a bit of sewing, so I do. And now I've tidied all my fabrics up and I can see them all, I am going to be shopping from my stash until I go to the Knitting and Stitch Festival in Harrogate in November. So what's that? August, September, October. About 3 months of no fabric buying. Going to be interesting. But as you can see, I've got quite a lot in my stash. So the answer to question 1 is, my dream is always buy new fabric whenever I want. My reality at the moment is shop from my stash till November. There we are. Question number 2 is an easy no-brainer for me. It says PDF versus paper patterns. Now, if you watch me and you know me, you know I'm a PDF girl. I do buy the odd paper pattern, but only when I can't get it in PDF form. If I see a pattern, I want it instantaneously, and that's what you get with a PDF. I don't even get the PDFs printed by a copy shop. I print them off myself and I stick them together, because that way within couple of hours of me saying, oh yeah, I want that pattern, I can have it cut out and ready to sew. And that's the beauty of PDFs. And we keep them, all the emails, in a patterns file on my phone and on my iPad, and I can never lose the patterns. Perfect. So that brings us on to the third question, which is cutting or tracing. Now, obviously, because I'm a PDF girl, I don't trace, I cut. Cut it out the size I think it is, even if I've never used the pattern company before, because I'm safe in the knowledge that I know I can just print it off again because I get PDF patterns. Even if I buy a paper pattern, which is very rare to be honest these days, I would still just cut it out. Cannot do with tracing at all. So then question number 4 on the sewing prep section was muslin or go for it. I'm a go for it girl. I might do a wearable muslin if in some cheaper fabric, if I've got expensive fabric and I'm worried about it going wrong. So I'll probably, in that instance, I would do a wearable muslin, but to do something out of a sheet that I'm never going to wear, or some cheap fabric or calico, not happening. Life's too short to be making muslins, in my opinion. Let me know what you think. So then the second section is all about fabric, my favourite subject. Question 1 is in-store or online? Now, this is one of my big bugbears in my part of the UK, the Northwest. Now, tell me if I'm wrong, but fabric shops, decent quality fabric shops, no disrespect to the cheaper ones, just don't exist. I turned up at one a few months back. On there, I'm not naming any names, Minerva. On there, it may be different now because I wasn't happy. In their online shop, it gave the shop opening times. What does that tell you? That you can go and there's a shop? No. No. They don't have a shop anymore. They're online only. And they're no different than the majority of fabric suppliers, unfortunately. I think if I ever chose to relocate, I'd relocate to Birmingham. They seem to have a lot of fabric stores that you can go to. And I'm hoping I'm going to plan a trip there later in the year. We'll see. So the answer to the fabric question, in-store or online, is unfortunately online. But my dream is that I will be able to go in-store every time, because to touch and feel the fabric is so much easier. And I think they're missing a trick, these guys who are just online, because when you go into a fabric store, you always come out with more than you intended. When I'm online, I'm very sensible with my selections. So I just think they're missing a trick, but that's just me. I might be wrong. Question 2, knit or woven? I always used to use woven fabrics. Always. Very, well, I never used knit fabrics until a couple of years ago, and I got myself, I'm looking at it because it's there, my baby. I bit the bullet and got an overlocker. It's a Brother 4234D. Really easy to use, and I've never looked back. So for preference now, I've got to say I would, depending on the garment, but 90% of the time I would choose knit fabric over woven. Easier to do, comes together really quickly. Love using the overlocker, so my favourite is knit. And then question number 3 in the fabric section is interesting one. Tumble dry versus line dry. Now, I might be one of the few people in the UK who does not have a tumble dryer. I hate them with a vengeance. They eat electricity, and at the moment, nobody needs to be doing that, do we? And I just think they make your fabric deteriorate. They ruin your clothes, ruin them. I get the convenience of them, particularly in winter, but I do have I got it from Lakeland. I think so. It's like an electric clothes horse where you hang everything in it and it has a cover and you zip it up, leave it plugged in. I'm telling you, they dry quicker than they would in a dryer, without a shadow. And it doesn't damage your clothes the same. So, easy answer, line dry. Question number 4 on the fabric, rotary cutter or scissors. Being a lady of a certain age, I was taught to sew garments by pinning the pattern pieces and cutting them out with scissors. I've tried to modernise myself and use a rotary cutter, and I just can't get my head around it. It's just not me. I do have a rotary cutter, and if I'm doing craft projects where there's lots of straight lines that need cutting out, then it's the rotary cutter. But for dressmaking, I'm a scissors girl. The scissors I have, if you're interested, are the Prim Micro Serration scissors. Brilliant. Best scissors I've ever had, bar none. And if you go on Amazon, they'll be cheaper than anywhere else. Just saying. So, let's move on, because this is going to be a long little chat if I don't be careful. Helps if I could turn the page over, doesn't it? There we go. Section 3. Wow, there's 8 questions in this section, so let's get motoring. Question 1. Do I follow the pattern or wing it? So, if it's a new pattern, I will follow the pattern religiously every time. However, being me, once I've made something once, I then start looking at, well, I wouldn't put the zip in like that and blah, blah, blah. So I don't exactly wing it, I tweak it to my way of doing things, which I'm sure everybody does. Question 2. Bias tape versus facings. It depends on the garment, doesn't it? Some garments are better with facings, others, particularly if you're going to see the facing through some fine fabric, it does not look good. So I would use a bias tape then. I make my own bias binding. I never buy it because I hate it. This is the kit that I use. It's got all the different sizes that you would ever need to make bias binding. You get a few clips. I think you get some. I've never used those feet actually. They must be to do with sewing bias binding. I'll have to have a look into that. But brilliant. Not expensive. And your fabric, your bias binding is the same as the fabric you're sewing in, which I think looks so much better. Let's move on. Serge versus teeth back in. Serging or French seams. Again, there is no straight answer to a lot of these questions. I prefer serging because it's quicker, or overlocking as we call it in the UK. But there are times when French seams are a better option. If I was making an unlined jacket, for instance, I would do French seams every time. I hate seeing the overlocking on the inside when it's something like that you're going to be taking on and off and people can see. It irritates me. And if it was doing something in some fine floaty fabric, French seams. But I think they're the only two instances that I can think of. The rest of the time, serging or overlocking, for sure. Next one, in clothing construction. Button fly versus a zip fly. 50-50 for me. I don't mind either. I quite like doing button flies. I quite like the design detail that they create depending on the trousers. I love them in jeans, but they're not always practical. So I'm 50-50. Do I? No, I think this means sewing the actual button on, not the buttonhole. By hand versus machine. I've got to be honest, I've never tried to sew a button on with my machine. Maybe it's something I need to try. It does do it when I get it back from the hospital. So, actually, when I go and pick it up, I might get them to show me. Got to get something out of it. So maybe that's what I'll ask. So at the moment, by hand, because it's just the way I've always done it. Going forward, I might see the light and do it differently. Interfacing next. Fusible versus sewn in. Fusible every time. I always use, is it Valine interfacing? It's reliable, it's a little bit more expensive, but when you're using iron-on interfacing, you need decent quality. So that's my only tip. Make sure you're buying quality iron-in interfacing, fusible interfacing, and it wins hands down over sewing. God, that's a bit, I don't know. Going back to the Dark Ages to me. Question 7. Snip as you go versus all at once. Now, I'm presuming they mean snipping your bits of cotton off as you go. And I would say that I'm a snip as you go because I'm lucky my machine does the automatic back tacking and snips the thread. So I don't have, very rare I have any loose threads, because it's then only very short when you start sewing again, unless I pull the thread through. But why would I do that? And I don't need to. So I'm a snip as you go, just because the machine does it for me. Last question in this section. Press as you go or all at once? Press as you go. You can't leave your pressing till the end when you're sewing. It is an integral part of creating a quality garment. And if you don't press your seams as you go, it ain't going to look great. So, simple. That was one where I has a definite answer. And then the last section is sewing habits. Late night or a daytime sewer. Now, when I was unlucky enough to be working, obviously I would sew in the evenings. But these days, because I've taken early retirement, I'm a daytime sewer. I don't sew in the evenings. I get tired and start making mistakes the odd time I've tried doing it. So I just don't. Definitely daytime. Slow and steady versus frantic. Interesting. The answer is it depends what I am sewing. If it's a garment that I've made a few times, then I may be classed as a frantic sewer because I just whiz through it. You don't have to read the pattern, don't have to think about it. If it's a new pattern, I take my time. So then I'm slow and steady. So it depends on what I'm sewing. And then, wow, last question. Tidy as you... Oh, this is a great one for me. Tidy as you go versus one big clean. If you've watched my recent Monday Makes and Plans and seen what the state my sewing shack has been in, there's been fabric and bits of patterns all over the place. So if I sat here now and said, oh yes, I clean as I go, nobody's going to believe me, are they? I won't be able to say it with a straight face. I could get away with it right now because everything is super tidy. Well, for me anyway. So I would like to be a clean as you go, tidy as I go. And that's what I aim to do. And I have been getting better at it by stopping sewing a little bit earlier in the day and spending the time to tidy up. But it slips, doesn't it? So my machine being poorly, it's done me a favour because all I've been able to do this week is cut patterns out and plan projects and tidy my room. And I'm looking at this now. So proud of it. The best it's ever been. Bang on. So I could sit and chat all afternoon about my fabric stash. Maybe I'll do a vlog on what I've got in my stash and how I've organised it. If that's something you'd be interested in, let me know. But this was the This or That dressmaking challenge. So thank you, Carol from So Carol, for opening it up to anybody, because that's meant I've been able to jump on board because nobody nominated me. And the last thing I've got to do is to nominate some people. So let's have a little think of who I think will be good at this. Okay, I've decided. I have been promoting small sewing channels and trying to introduce you to new sewing channels every Monday on my Monday Makes and Plans. I've got a list of 10 here. So any of these, if you've not done the This or That challenge, I'm nominating all 10 of you. So I will link you below, but I'll read through the list as well now. So number 1 is Stitch and Style by Nadia. I'd be amazed if she's not been tagged already. Number 2, Summer Room Sewing. Number 3, So Disorganised, sounds like me. Number 4, So Much Sewing. Number 5, The Cart Diem Stitcher. I was watching her this morning about her going to the quilt festival. Really interesting. Number 6, So Happy. Number 7, Colleen Sews and Chats. Number 8, Goody Sew Fun. Number 9, Sewing in Switzerland. You could ask the potatoes for help. She will know what I mean. And if you watch the lady sewing in Switzerland, Samantha, you'll know what I mean as well with her potatoes. And number 10, Val Marie. So that's 10 small sewing channels that I am sending the challenge out to do the This or That dressmaking challenge. So ask yourself the questions that I've asked myself in this video, do your own video, and then keep the challenge alive by tagging some more people. I hope you found it interesting. Have a lovely weekend, and I will see you again on Monday for my Monday Makes and Plans. Not sure there's going to be much sewing done this week because I haven't got a machine. But I'll think of something to chat about. So take care. See you then. Happy sewing. Bye bye.